And we're live. So welcome to another episode of Wikipedia Weekly. This is episode 130, WREN Overtime. So welcome to the Wikipedia Weekly Network. I'm your host, Andrew Lee, also known as User Fuzzheado on the English Wikipedia. And I want to welcome you to one of the episodes, which is after one of the regular meetings we have as Wikimedians in residence with the Wikimedia community here. So we're going to have each of the folks here introduce themselves really quick in terms of what they do in the Wikimedia universe and with other institutions. But the Wikimedia Weekly Network is something that we just started back up again recently. And you are sometimes viewing this on Facebook Live. You might be seeing us on YouTube. You might be seeing us on Periscope. Or maybe you're a gamer and you're seeing us on Twitch. So we're using a tool that actually sends us out to all four networks at the same time. And we hope you'll come back and watch more things. And you can actually send your comments to us. We're using a software system called StreamYard. So if you send us questions or comments on any of those platforms, whether it's Facebook, whether it's YouTube or Twitter, we can actually see those and surface them on the screen. And this is a pretty unique way of doing the podcast live. So I will pass it to Richard Nipel to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Richard Nipel, user Pharos, coming to you live from my residence in Brooklyn. Glad to bring you this show today, and we're coming from the Wikimedians in Residence Network, which is our little guild of Wikimedians in Residence, people who have been affiliated with cultural or educational institutions around the world. Are doing different Wikipedia and Wikimedia related work for them. And we've been meeting up a little bit more regularly because of the crisis, and we've been exchanging ideas about how do we handle things like editathons, how do we work with some other staff at our institutions during this time, and maybe, see if we can provide a special role, in this time when we can't, when the museums are closed, when the university classrooms are closed. And so hopefully we can talk about it a little bit. And Kelly?
Hi, I am Kelly Doyle. I am coming to this video from Charleston, South Carolina. I work on the American Women's History Initiative at the Smithsonian. I'm the Open Knowledge Coordinator, working to get more of our collections about women and our objects about women on Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons and Wikidata.
Lane?
My name's Lane Raspberry. I edit Wikipedia as Blue Raspberry. I'm Wikimedian in residence at the School of Data Science at the University of Virginia. I mostly edit medical content on Wikipedia these days. Great time for us. So many people interested in COVID-19 information, and so many new editors sharing what's happening with COVID-19 in their own communities. I also develop Wikidata content, particularly the citations in the WikiCite project, on which the reliability of Wikipedia relies. And we're also doing medical translations to make sure that everybody has access to the medical information they need to inform the decisions they make.
So I think I'm the last one to speak. Hi everybody, Luca Martinelli from Italy, Wikipedian since 2006. My username is that one, Sanita. It reminds me of my home city. I've been around in the international community since 2011, so since Wikimedia 2011. And I was, for 5 years, Wikipedian in residence at the National Library System in Italy, mostly taking care of matching up our national library system with Wikidata, of which I'm an administrator. I'm an administrator also on Italian Wikipedia, Neapolitan Wikipedia, and Neapolitan Wikisource. And what I do the most is actually, I don't know, I fall in love with issues or stuff, and I do that, and then I change my topic after a month or so. But basically, I do mostly politics, biographies, sometimes movies. When I like a movie, I fix up the article and stuff like that. So that's it.
Great, thanks so much. And I think a lot of folks watching this are very new to WREN. So if you haven't seen it, this is the page on Meta. And I think we're famous for saying you don't actually have to be a Wikimedian in residence to join the WREN calls, and we actually have other folks. So, Richard, how do you explain the inclusion principle for WREN, since you are one of the main creators?
I always think that Wikimedia, when it's at its best, is about inclusion, and so we'd love to have all sorts of people participate in our calls, in our conversations. I guess technically the WREN members are people who are Wikimedians in residence or have been Wikimedians in residence in the past, but we want everyone to participate in our discussions. And thank you to Lane for this lovely graphic design, for the birds and the flocking together, and the singing, and the trees where we make our home when we're not in quarantine. Yeah, and so hopefully we can. And we also look to have a diversity of different topics that people represent, and also diversity of different types of institutions. So, for example, sometimes people have talked about Wikimedians residents primarily at museums, but also at universities, at zoos, wherever. So glad to have everyone join and participate in some of our discussions over the next few months as we go through this.
Yeah, so we have a monthly call, and we talk about a lot of the things that people are going through, and we're going to go around the table in a few minutes here to talk about some of the things that we're working on as well. But if you haven't had a chance to look, I guess we should talk a little bit about April 1st, since it is a tradition in the Wiki community to do something. So what have you folks seen April 1st wise on the Wiki pages that have been interesting? And of course, this year is a little bit odd because we really can't let all the frivolity go crazy, but I have seen some really interesting things so far. But what about you folks?
The one that I saw that I really liked was because you tweeted it, Andrew, was the Wiki Voyager Your Home travel site.
Right. So Wiki Voyage, what was the page here? I can't remember.
I think it was home or your home.
Yeah, I think it's your house, maybe.
Your house. Yeah, I think you're right. Oops. What?
Maybe it was your home.
Your house. There we are.
Your house. Okay.
What did it say here?
I think there's some good reading material. So Voyage Around My Room, Javier de Marestra, 1748 or something like that.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty cool. And for folks who are not familiar with Wiki Voyage, this is the travel kind of guide that we've had in our community. It used to be Wiki Travel, but that was kind of, it wasn't in our project, but Wiki Travel is probably the best known wiki. But now Wiki Voyage is under the umbrella of the Wikimedia sites now. And you can see here, just pretty funny. Normally you have this basic spine of what you see in Wiki Voyage in terms of get in, how do you move around. So people kind of wrote it all in the context of you being stuck at home, which I thought was kind of funny.
You should pull up a really well done one like Cape Town, a place where we've had a Wikimania, to show how it usually looks. My favorite thing is that you should watch Home Alone. That's the recommendation on here.
Oh, is that right? That's so funny.
Yeah, if you scroll down just a tiny bit, it says what you should watch or listen to.
Right. So as Kelly said, we can look at what a normal one looks like for a travel guide. So, you have your temperature, what should you wear, how do you exchange money, where should you travel to? So this is what I won't say normal, but a typical guide looks like in Wiki Travel or Wiki Voyage, I should say. And then now you can see the learn, work, buy. What do you guess is under buy? I'm not sure what's going to be here.
There is toilet
paper.
Oh no!
Of course.
Yikes!
Eat, cook for yourself. Heat up leftovers.
Drink is BYOB. There's water on tap though.
They've been updating this.
I'm surprised someone hasn't put plant your own garden here. Interesting.
Well, the nice thing is you can edit it.
Right. The bedroom has a bed. Hopefully it's comfortable. Stay safe. Actually, some useful information here.
Yeah.
They snuck in the useful information.
I don't think I've ever met a Wiki Voyage editor.
Do we know any Wiki Voyage editors? I'm not sure I do either.
I don't know.
I do. Actually, one of the most active users in Italy, and he's really fond of travels around the world. I mean, we don't see each other since years, because every kind of a vacation he has, he spends it like traveling to Sri Lanka or Nepal or Kenya or Chile or like truly around the world. So
Interesting.
oh, there you go.
Cool. Oh yeah. So for folks who are editing or commenting on Facebook, if you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, that'll allow StreamYard to show your face and your name, because StreamYard that we're using is a different system. But by granting that permission, then we get to see more information about you if we bring your comment up there. But that's something that is more useful when we bring up those comments. So if you want to do that, we can bring that up as well. So if anyone else in the commenting section has any jokes either on your own home wiki or anything that you've seen, please send us comments and we can surface those and kind of see those on screen. But this was probably the best one I've seen so far. And if you go to front page of English Wikipedia, sometimes you'll see in the Did You Know section often has a lot of content that is related to April Fools, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so that's the we've foregone April Fools for the featured article this year out of respect, but
Right.
Out of disrespect, we still have the April Fools in the Did You Know section, a lot of which relies on homonyms, which is partly my fault. I originated the great homonym tradition in Wikipedia for April Fools in 2007. So in 2007, I wrote. We had a war every year about whether we should have fake articles on April Fools or not, and I wrote an article on an article that was true but looked like it was fake, about a guy named George Washington who happened to be the guy who invented instant coffee. And I wrote the article in 4 days, and it was and still is the world record for the fastest featured article. And since then, often people have done homonyms, but I think it's best that this has been scaled down this year. I think that's quite appropriate. Although I still have a place in my heart for April Fools on Wikipedia.
There's also a non-Latin alphabet joke going on the Russian Wikipedia on the main page. And they made some sort of a comrade. Have you signed up for Wikipedia? An international encyclopedia in which the principle of the production and distribution of knowledge is from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. So they basically turned out to the old Tovarish. So they turned to the old USSR just for today.
Wow. So this is not their typical logo in the upper left-hand corner. That's new, right?
Yeah, it states thanks to Amir, who actually translated. It's editors of from all the world unite. So it's basically the communist motto. Read it as the last Wikipedian.
I have to say that the Russian
that's great.
The Russian internet is a more lively and interesting place than a lot of civil society in Russia in general. So kudos to the Russophone internet.
Fascinating. How about Italian? Doesn't have anything interesting?
We don't have anything interesting since 2007, I think. But I have one nice anecdote about this. I registered in 2006. So when it came to April the 1st, 2006, they blanked out the whole main page, saying they received a very costly libel or defamation stuff. Mm-hmm. So they decided to close up everything, and I was like, "Oh, come on! I just registered. Like, I brought so much, but who's the Sorry, I was about to say something I shouldn't be allowed to say.
So you came just.
Who's the people? Yeah, I just fell in the April Fool, and then I looked at the history page, and I saw April Fools. Oh gosh! So and then I it was like very well done. But since 2007, we don't do any more April Fools. I think we kind of we lost our Italian ship in a way.
Yeah. So if anyone else in the watching this in any of the channels has any April 1st content that you saw on Wiki, let us know. But it certainly does feel like it's much more low key, appropriately so, and it just kind of comes in dribs and drabs compared to other years where there's a lot of fanfare, sometimes even press releases around these types of things. So if we are done looking at April 1, let's talk a little bit about what we each of us do as Wikimedians in residence. So Kelly, you were just talking about the American Women's History Initiative. So I'm going to bring that up while you can just explain a little bit more about what you've been doing with this, which is a really nice initiative that was started about a year ago at the Smithsonian. For those folks just listening, Smithsonian Institution is kind of a weird construction in terms of like national museums. It's kind of the America's National Museum, but it kind of isn't because it's kind of quasi-government. So it is privately funded, but also gets lots of government funds. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
So the American Women's History Initiative is a digital initiative mostly. We'll have exhibits and collections and things like that, but it really is digitally focused, especially around young girls and young women, to be not only involved in some of the programming that we're doing, but the content is geared towards young women and girls. I specifically am working with our curators. Oh, there's also AWHI, American Women's History Initiative curators at some of the units, some of the museums, which is really wonderful. They've been great collaborators with me on wiki stuff. So not just image releases around some of the exhibits, but also helping me sort of scrape the collections and the archives for notable women that we maybe don't know about. And how we can get those women on Wikidata or get Wikipedia articles written about those women at some of our events, which has been really fun, finding and uncovering new stories about women in the archives and the collections, and it's really collaborative that way. We host an event probably once every 3 or 4 months at one of the museums, and there's typically an image release associated with it, which is really wonderful. We've had lots of image views for those uploads that we've put out there on Commons and then onto Wikipedia articles. And the next step is really thinking through Wikidata. The Smithsonian just did a big open access push that I'm sure a lot of you saw. If you didn't, you can go just type in Smithsonian Open Access and get to that page to find out about the release and all the museums that participated and what's been put out there. And hopefully in the next year, we'll be able to work a little bit more with doing some Wikidata tasks, especially around women's history, and also working with our Smithsonian affiliate museums to see what kind of content they have about American women and how we can get images and stub articles at least written about those women from, the museums that have tons of content that we don't know about. And we have an AWHI, American Women's History Initiative internship program this summer. So there'll be, I think, 7 or 8 interns, college-aged interns this summer working on this as well. 2 will be working on Wikipedia projects, which is amazing. 1 will be at the National Anthropological Archives, which is connected to the Natural History Museum. And then another will be at the Museum of the American Indian. So I'm really excited to see what kind of work that these young interns do around some of our content, and it's all around American women's history, so it will help with our gender gap issues, and also just getting more of our interns to sort of understand Wiki. Earlier today, Andrew and I had chatted about intern training that we were thinking through, so also trying to put our heads together about what a training could look like for this cohort of American Women's History Initiative interns, even if they're not the 2 or 3 that are working on Wiki. What basic, high-level, broad skills can we bring to any intern who's thinking about museum studies, knowledge professional studies, moving into those spaces after they graduate college? What are the top points that they should know about Wiki, Wikidata, Wikipedia, Wikimedia Commons? And how can we condense that into a 3-hour or less training? And hopefully, depending on how the summer goes and us moving back towards in real life programming, perhaps that early summer training with the interns could feed into a bigger edit-a-thon that they could attend. So not only getting the training piece, but also getting the in real life, fun of an edit-a-thon, seeing the community work in real life. And especially for our interns that are focused on Wiki, that's a great way for them to get not only the on-Wiki skills, but the off-Wiki skills as well. So I'm really excited that Wiki's just growing at the Smithsonian, and especially growing around women's history, because we need that content on Wiki really badly. And we need new women editors. So I'm excited. There's a lot of fun things in the works.
Great, yeah. I think this is something that would be great to hear other people's opinions on. All these internship programs. I feel so bad for all these high schoolers, college students, and everyone. It seems like we're kind of like a slow moving, I don't want to quite call it disaster, but we kind of see on the horizon that pretty much all these in real life programs are going to be kind of canceled or put off. So
or
what can we do
to
as
digital? It could move to virtual, which would be awesome. And it would be a great opportunity. Maybe if things open back up in July, August, the first 6 weeks of it are digital or virtual. I mean, we know as Wikipedians and residents that a lot of this work can be done remotely. It's really just the public programming piece that happens in real life. And even us, this, pandemic has kind of taught us we need to get better as a community at our own virtual public programming writ large. So I think it could be a great opportunity for cultural institutions to dive into how some of these internships could shift to remote.
Yeah, and maybe we could even support more, people who are interns or doing intern-like positions. If there's, a larger range of people who want to become involved in part-time, that might be possible. And then, maybe they can, become more involved as interns.
And I think too, if we were to do that internship training at the Smithsonian or at the Met virtually, it opens up the doors for other Wiki experts to hop on those calls in a way that they maybe couldn't or wouldn't be as appropriate in real life training that we're doing in a big lecture hall. So the breadth of experience that could be brought in for the interns or for whoever wants to get that type of training could really grow in a way that an in real life program maybe couldn't.
Yeah, one of the first Wikimedian residence was Liam Wyatt, and he always in the early days started with the question to GLAM organizations, do you have an e-volunteer program? And most didn't, right? So this is kind of the ultimate way to bring that to scale. Is like, what if we didn't just keep these resources and the training to those 12 interns at Smithsonian or the 30 that Richard and I were planning at the Met Museum? Instead, we make it huge at scale, kind of like how Google has Summer of Code, where they just invite all these, high schoolers and college folks to contribute some code. Why couldn't we turn this into the Summer of Wiki or something like that, where we make it hyper inclusive?
And think of all the college kids, when I was in college, I would get, like nanny jobs or camp counselor jobs or whatever. Those things might not be happening this summer. So there might be college kids with a real urge to do something that's not Netflix and video games. So maybe there could be a type of like programming that we come together and offer, even if it's just something really informal like this, where we just chat about Wiki and what that means for the college context, for the young professional context.
Right.
Wiki Data Conservation Corps.
Yeah.
Right.
for those Americans in the audience.
Yeah, it's like the Great Depression era type of great works projects or public works projects.
Right? Young people building parks, the national parks in the U.S. under the Roosevelt administration. So I think we can take some inspiration from that.
Yeah, and Kelly, the thing is that you're so uniquely suited for this because you are the Wikimedian residence at West Virginia University, one of the higher profile Wikimedians in residence at an institution. And one of your projects that you were working on was trying to engage college students as their service requirement for sororities or fraternities, how to do this. So do you have any other insights into how we would engage that set? I mean, we know they use it all the time. They depend on Wikipedia for their college assignments, things like that.
So,
but what do you think would be the motivation? Would they need like a certificate, or what would their accomplishment be at the end, do you think?
It's really interesting to think of, my past professional context, because colleges are shutting down, everything is remote, but there's still a service requirement. I know that maybe each individual school is waiving it for their students involved in certain organizations. So basically the service requirement for anyone watching is if you're involved in certain types of academic courses of study or even extracurricular stuff, like if you're in a sorority or certain groups, you need to give 10, 15, 20, 30 hours of service per semester. Maybe the colleges are waiving them. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I can't imagine if this goes on into the fall semester that they can continue waiving core competency pieces of courses of study. So maybe Wikipedia could be something that we offer. And I mean, when I did this service learning project at West Virginia University, it was mostly remote. I didn't really spend that much face-to-face time with the students. I would meet with them once in real life and do a training, a little, edit-a-thon for them. But most of it was me, them emailing me, or in our service system, them saying, I did 5 hours of service on Wiki. And I would go look at their username and see what they contributed and say, hey, is this 5 hours to a newbie? I can't see any reason why that can't be a fully remote situation. The hard part would be getting the university to buy into it. But the workaround would be if everyone is scrambling, like anyone offering to help is a win at the same time. And I really loved that project. I thought that it had a lot of legs for getting college students who have the service requirement involved with Wiki. And especially because I was focused specifically on groups that were women oriented. They were mostly groups of women who needed the service requirement within their sorority or their course of study, because I was specifically trying to solve the gender gap issue. There's no reason why we can't broaden it out.
Yeah, and I think one thing that'd be really interesting to see is, we know that we've been kind of in a rut on training at edit-a-thons. Like we know that the retention rate is quite low. So this is a great way to kind of force us out of the comfort zone of saying, let's try different things online and try different things that might motivate 18 to 25-year-olds or something. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for explaining that. And this is a good time to jump to Lane, because you are also situated at a university. So you are in contact all the time with students, working specifically in your area of data science. And, there is a little bit of crossover because Richard and I, with the Met Museum, we have some engagement with some of your students on how to use GLAM content for their projects. So what are you doing right now with your position and students? And two, do you have any insights on what we might be able to do with engaging students in some type of internship program or internship training?
Sure. So I'm at the University of Virginia in beautiful Charlottesville, Virginia. These days I'm quarantined in Brooklyn as well. Just as Kelly said, there's a lot of, when people talk about Wikipedia, there's a lot of media around the gender gap. And for me, the gender gap isn't the problem. It's an opportunity. It actually inspires people to contribute to Wikipedia and develop content. So I know that there's this deficiency in place, but actually when I do outreach, it's helpful because if people know that there's a challenge in the world, it makes them more inspired to contribute. Wikipedia is very versatile. It can be applied in so many different ways to so many different classes. Right now, I'm engaged with an art class where the students are trying to edit Wikipedia articles for artists, their work, especially looking at gender and non-binary people and underrepresented populations. So these kind of things happen at universities in all sorts of contexts. Andrew, like I said with you, so Wikidata is another thing. And for people who aren't so familiar with Wikipedia and Wikidata and everything that it does, Wikipedia catalogs are a great many things. And with the images in Wikipedia, so this is, I hope, simple enough to explain. I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but people categorize these by what do the images depict. Like, for example, for the artworks at the Smithsonian or the artworks at any other museum, what are all the pictures that show a flower or show a house or show a boat? And can you find these kind of things in Wikipedia very quickly or in Wikimedia Commons in a way that perhaps the original institution's library catalog doesn't make it easy to surface? How can you remix these kind of things in Wikidata? I'd like to say something briefly, like why anyone should care about Wikipedia. And I'd like to do a quick demo with screen share. And this is absolutely fundamental. I think everybody should know something about this. We're in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic. I develop a lot of medical content, and people at my university are doing this as well. People at every university in the world, they're doing this as well. And I like to demonstrate that whether you're at an art museum, whether you're at a university, no matter what field you study or what you're doing, that if you post your information into Wikipedia, people will actually read it. You can have a communication impact, and the information that you share in your field of expertise in Wikipedia will reach the world. So what I'm going to do for about 60 seconds, I'm going to start at a Wikipedia article. I'm going to navigate to the report, which shows the audience metrics. And just very quickly, I'm going to say, how do you get a metrics report for who's reading a given Wikipedia article?
So go ahead and start your screen share. And while you're doing that, I'll explain to folks watching us. Please do comment on YouTube, on Facebook, and even on Twitter. We'll actually see those comments, and we can actually bring up those comments on screen, like something like that. And if you're on Facebook, you can go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and you'll actually register your name and face there so we can see folks like Bob at New York Public Library can comment like that. So let's bring up Lane's screen there. Is that the screen you want to show there?
Are you seeing the Wikipedia article in English for the coronavirus disease 2019?
Yeah. If you make the font a little bit bigger, maybe Command plus or Control plus a few times, then we can see it bigger.
How's this?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so I'm at a Wikipedia article. It happens that I'm logged in, but no one needs to register a Wikipedia account. Everyone has access to this information. It's free and open and public. At the top of every Wikipedia article, there's a history button. And in this log, I've clicked on history. I can see everyone who's ever edited this article. And I also see the time and date at which they've done this. So Wikipedia actually keeps the log of every edit to every Wikipedia article for as long as that article exists. That's interesting in itself, but we're going to look at page views. And to find that, I click the tab that says page views. It generates a report. And what I see here is for every given day that this article has existed, how many people have visited this article. So I see on this day, 268,000 people visited the Wikipedia article on coronavirus disease 2019. For those of you who aren't in the communications industry and don't know whether these numbers are big or not, I'm just going to tell you, it's my opinion as someone who's been doing this for a long time that Wikipedia is probably the single most consulted source of information for this topic. And of course, there's many sources of information, but as far as one place where a person can share information, this is extremely popular. And if anyone has the best information to share, the best sources to cite, and they were to put it in any given Wikipedia article, you're going to reach a sizable audience. If Wikipedia is not the most popular, then at least it's very popular. I'm going to show another view of this. So this happens to be the Wikipedia article just for coronavirus disease. If I click this button over here that says include redirects, there's many names by which this article goes by, like COVID-19 and different variations of this. And if I click that, then I get a different kind of traffic report that gets this by all the synonyms that this might go on. There's one more traffic report that I'm going to show you. There's many buttons here that a person can click and check. But Wikipedia, it doesn't just exist in one language. It exists in many languages. And I'm going to get a report for this article by whatever name it is in whatever language it may be in. This is the multi-language view. So it's most popular in English, and this makes sense. Wikipedia, many readers are in English, and they consult English as a second language. But here we also see it's getting a lot of traffic in Spanish and Russian and French, German. People can browse through and see these various other language versions of the same article that are independently translated by Wiki community members. And anyone can get the traffic reports for these various language versions as well, if they care to do so. You can do this not just for medicine, for any kind of topic. Thanks for checking it out. And if you're considering editing Wikipedia, think also of the audience that you'll reach.
Yeah, no, thanks for showing us. I mean, it's kind of most people don't realize that those stats are so public and that you can reach them. Unfortunately, they're like 2 clicks away from the actual page. I wish in my dream scenario where we could actually remake the user experience, that kind of information is much more present for folks to inspect. So.
Well, we're Wikimedians of residence. So like the Smithsonian, if they care to do so, they could track, and they will, in one way or the other, track how many people are reading the content that they post. And when my students at my university, they're contributing to Wikipedia, I, as a Wikimedian in residence, so a Wikipedia volunteer isn't going to volunteer to track the analytics and metrics and report those to an organization. But if an organization has a Wikimedian in residence, this is a very common function. Like, what is the scope and impact of the Wikipedian engagement that my university or my museum or my medical institute or whatever, what they do at my institution.
Right. And maybe another podcast we can go over some of the deeper tools that we use as Wikimedians in residence to actually show impact. Because you're absolutely right. Like, you can maybe get that first injection of funding from institution, but you have to kind of show repeated impact, right? And that's something Kelly has to do at Smithsonian. I'm sure Luca has done that as well. And we've got tools that have interesting names like Baglama and Glamorgan, or any variation of glam in there that we can find, which isn't a lot, but we have those tools that kind of show neat charts and graphs. And, you know, you don't need many of them to show the institution, like, your traffic is here and Wikipedia traffic's here. I think it makes sense to fund this another year, right? So
this is what I say. So every organization in the world is absolutely convinced that they need to hire staff to contribute to Facebook and Twitter, which are good channels, and I think that this is worthwhile. But as they consider their communication investment options, I think that Wikipedia has a place among the other ones.
Right. And Rob and other folks were quick to point out that, you know, we should actually have more journalism around Wikipedia, given how prominent it is. So Jan here says, I would like to see the mini graph from Hatnote's top articles in the header of an article. Yeah, that would be really great to see this much more present. You know, we've got so much data that we can show, but we're actually not exposing it to the average user, and that's too bad. We're very conservative.
And we can show it. There is a guerrilla campaign where people have been posting it on talk pages. So the software exists, and people have posted it, and so it's one click away in that case. But I mean, if it can go on the talk page, it can go on the front page too.
Andrew, can you show an example of what he's talking about on screen share?
Example of what now?
The top articles, the mini graphs that he's talking about.
Maybe go to the maybe show the maybe just go to COVID-19 and see it's on the talk page what it looks like.
Some people have it in some places. It's not on every article.
Right.
I can't think of an example. It's an experimental feature. So Wikipedia has many experimental features that are in place and here and there. Offhand, I'm not sure where it's implemented.
Right, because you're right. The talk page has wound up being kind of a catch-all for stuff that you're trying to make more public, but you can't get consensus on necessarily. So this is the talk page of the coronavirus disease here, and you can see all the kind of metadata we have here. And then this, if you can notice it, if you click on this, you actually can show a graph if you put the template in there. Right, so you can see that they do have some kind of, and this is logarithmic, right? So it looks like, oh, it's kind of gone up nicely. This is powers of 10 on the Y scale here. So there's a lot of stuff. Rob says, guerrilla data science. Yes, absolutely. So if you go in here, this is more for the geek set here. If you say edit source, you will see somewhere in here, right here, annual readership. Does anyone see that? So that one line there adds a template to the talk page, and you can kind of see what scale you're using. Is it expanded or not? I guess C means compact view to start with. But look at all this interesting stuff, and it winds up being quite a fascinating accumulation of knowledge for editors that winds up on the talk page here. So that's a lot of info. And then this is something that's interesting too, is if this article has been mentioned by mainstream media, you often see like a log here of this article's mention in news sources, which I think is kind of interesting. So that's a pretty cool way of archiving that information there.
It's nice that line about Wikipedia has developed a conscience. Like, well, good morning, princess. Like, sorry, it comes from the bottom of my heart. I mean, we always have a conscience. We're not boats. We do it because we believe in some sort of inner.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about the talk pages here is that, you know, the contents of this varies quite a bit by topical area, right? So you've like medical articles use the talk page section for certain things, military history or contentious articles use this for different things. And I always thought that this is a floating idea by you folks. Like, we almost have so much function here now that we maybe should have a third page for every article, right? We have the article, the talk page. We should maybe have like a third completely different page for like, I want to call this like not discussion, but like kind of like meta information, almost like a bookshelf of this kind of stuff. Because the talk page now, look how far you have to scroll down to actually get to any talking. It's actually way down here. So maybe, I don't know if anyone in any other wikis suggested that, but we probably need to break all this stuff out, which is very useful, into its third type of page that exists related to a topic.
If I might, I think it's mostly a English Wikipedia thing, but basically, sorry for being a bit blunt. For once, it's something that we can definitely adopt on other Wikipedias. It will be hard. You already know how hard it's to talk to a Wikipedian, and but still, yeah, it can help us like separating the in-wiki part of the discussion from the general discussion about how to actually develop the article or what's going on and stuff. So probably that's this is good. This is a good idea. Also, it can help us like putting all the stuff that we need, like article views or monitoring articles and assessment levels and stuff like that, and then having a space only for discussing the article. It can instead of having everything in the same page.
Right.
I think it's the right idea. It's a good idea.
Yeah, but our community. Anything that is major change probably will just get stuck in a corner.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So I thought this one was interesting to show. Lane, tell us a little about the piece that you wrote recently.
Can I get you to back up and go to the main page? I'd like you to click on the special report in the signpost.
This is not the special report.
Let's see. So back to the main page of it.
Oh, okay.
You're at the signpost. Yeah, the main page of the signpost.
This one.
That one. What we publish and why it matters. So this is an article that I wrote in the Wikipedia community newsletter called The Signpost. This is mostly for English Wikipedia, but anyone who edits Wikipedia is welcome to contribute to it and talk about any matters of Wikipedia business. And what this article says, it talks about the traffic to the various mini Wikipedia articles on COVID-19. It talks about the traffic in various languages. And when I wrote this article, what I had in mind is the university that was considering editing Wikipedia, but wanted to know, is this worth our time? Should we have our researchers or students do this? And what the argument that I make is because of the traffic in these various languages and the potential reach, it's worthwhile. So if anybody wants a human readable, friendly piece of journalism to show their institution, to help make the argument that it's worthwhile to have a Wikipedia event. We're not even talking about hiring staff or making a major financial investment. We're talking about a one-off event where an organization shares their expertise in Wikipedia, tracks the metrics to it, and sees and has a conversation. Does this work for us? Do we like this kind of communication reach? And I think that a lot of organizations that do this, they'll start to think, yes, there is a way and a place for us to share the kind of information that we want and use Wikipedia as a media partner. It fits in some cases.
Right. And, these numbers should speak for themselves, but sometimes we have to force it down the throat of folks there. So there's a good question on the chat there. You want to bring that up? So any ideas on how more people could be informed of talk pages? I feel like most readers aren't aware.
Luca, you got something to say? Why don't you take this one?
Seems to agree.
I totally agree on this. I mean, whenever I do lessons or outreach things, and they say, you can talk about this article. We can have discussions. We can actually, interact with other Wikipedians about this. And like 99% of the people are, wow, I've never saw that tab before. And it's like, yeah, it's the same for history or edit sometimes. So it's possible. We need to find out some sort of a user UX solution that, I don't know, makes it bigger, makes tabs bigger, or suggest. I don't know. But still, it is a problem, actually.
Yeah, I think we hide too much. I think we're scared to show the sausage factory, and we shouldn't be so scared, because I mean it's interesting, and I think like one of the main things, like okay, when you do like a training or something, people aren't always going to become heavy haters of Wikipedia, but they can always learn how to read the talk page. And when you read the talk page, you can find out all the controversies that are on the front side. You can find out what people discussed and how did we formulate that phrase that 80% of people can agree is a fair representation of controversy. We have a comment from Facebook from Tori Danielson, but there are no share buttons on Wikipedia when it comes to these article statistics. Could that be useful? Could it be a feature? Invite to more discussions. I think that is a very legitimate point. Part of the reason is because that share buttons tend to be dominated by the large commercial social media groups like Facebook. But I think there's no reason why we shouldn't have share buttons as long as they're, ecumenical in that regard, and they go out to all the different platforms. So I think that's a positive idea.
I thought it'd be interesting also to point out we have this, for better or for worse, we do have a culture of this, at least a page in our guidelines, which is the most famous, I don't know, the most famous shortcut is WP not social. Like, we are not a social network. And for better, for worse, for years, that has prevented us from adding what I would say like bells and whistles. And Lane is like, tell us what you think, Lane.
Well, Wikipedia is one of the most social places on the internet. It's entirely collaborative, a very positive and friendly community. Nobody writes these articles in isolation. To put together a Wikipedia article, it takes writers, copy editors, fact checkers, someone to mediate the conflict disputes, which are very friendly as compared to a conflict anywhere else. Multimedia, getting images and audio and whatever else illustrates the article, is scarcely does any popular Wikipedia article come to be in existence without 100 people collaborating in the way that they would collaborate in any major media house to put together a magazine or a newspaper. I understand that Wikipedia is not a place where people are supposed to have indiscriminate conversation that are unrelated to the development of the encyclopedia articles. So people do stay in focus on that way. But I would say that Wikipedia definitely is a social media website in that people are sharing all kinds of content, and it certainly circulates around the web like any other Web 2.0 or user-generated content platform.
Yeah, I think we're very social. And I think, this is going out live on Twitter. It's going live on Facebook. And, I would say, okay, we should, I'm happy to send it out, share with those platforms and people who are on those communities. But I think, in the long run, I think Facebook, we're coming for you. I think that, Wikipedia, Wikimedia should be the home of social media. I think, we're dying for a nonprofit solution for this. And if this isn't the right time to do it, this is the time. This is your strategic moment, Wikimedia Foundation. I leave it in your hands.
It's frustrating, but the funny thing is, if you read that policy page, it doesn't preclude the addition of share buttons. But the problem I see all the time, I wonder if it's true in Italian, Luca, or other languages that you see, is that sometimes these shortcuts like WP not social, they become a life of their own. Like somehow you see like not social. Oh, okay, we can't do social stuff. But that's not what the policy says. But people wind up using the shortcut to prove things that aren't true, which is kind of weird in our community.
We actually had to change once our equivalent of WP idiot, because it was used actually as a don't be a WP idiot. Mm-hmm. So it's like there was room for discussing if it was a real insult or not. So we had to, instead of blocking the user, we renamed the page in order to make it more kind and less attacking in nature. But still it's sometimes is it, but still we tend not to use many abbreviations on the Italian Wikipedia, mm-hmm. except when it comes to internal discussions. But when we have to discuss with somebody who's not well versed in our language, we try to expand on what that link means. Well, at least we try.
Right.
Luca, I really appreciate what you and the Italian community have done to make a collaboration with another free and open project, OpenStreetMap, which I think is very aligned with the Wikimedia movement. in mission, just a different bit of a different skill set. And you guys are one of the few wiki communities to really do that effectively when wiki's so reliant on maps and location data. And excuse me, Luke, I'd like to more. I've got to step out of this meeting. I'm sorry, I'm unable to hear your part. Thanks everyone for hosting.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Lane.
All right, thank you.
Great. Yeah, so the interesting thing about the shortcuts is we wind up having, I think there's been like shortcut creep in English Wikipedia, so we actually have so many that they're almost like a whole subculture of their own. So I agree, that's kind of an odd thing. But Luca, tell us more about what you've been doing, what's been keeping you busy. Obviously, I'd love to hear more about what's happening in Italian Wikipedia, considering you folks were kind of absorbed a lot of the first, the first reverberations of having to stay at home and cutting off contact. I mean, tell us more about what your experience has been.
Well, we basically thought of something to do during the quarantine because it happened so quickly. Everything happened so quickly. Like 48 hours, we passed from a very, very, very small red zone in Lombardy to a very much extended red zone in Italy, like the whole Lombardy region and some other provinces in northern Italy, to a full country lockdown area. And it's been like this like 3 weeks. And actually, the first thing that we thought about, it's actually what to do not to think about the virus. So we came out with a writing week, which actually, well, you can put an S at the end because it's been like a writing weeks edition.
Can I ask you something simple? Why is it called writing week in English?
I don't know. Possibly it's because we actually like English. Yeah, thank you. We actually like English when it comes to you see, writing week locked down. It's I don't know. Italians are very fond of English when they have to come up with some ideas, and mostly because English is actually a language that's more versatile in summing up things, while Italians tend to talk really a lot, like I'm doing at the moment. So. So basically, the activity from March the 10th on is being extended to the whole national territory and San Marino, which is not into a lockdown, but it is because we are in a lockdown. So sorry, and so you see all the dots on the map here are new articles. So the red ones are the articles on Wikipedia in Italian, while the green one are the Wiki Voyage in Italian.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and the other ones are the, as you can see, sorry, that's the list of old, well, sorry, I forgot about the most important thing. We're doing it about buildings, museums, and institution like very like museums or work of arts, or even places or protected area. So like parks, national parks, regional parks. We've got so many, and actually several other volunteers covered that particular thing. While the association was Wikimedia Italy was taking care of monuments. These other volunteers were taking care of national parks and protected areas. So basically, it came out like this, as you can see, since March the 8th. That's all the work that people did, also in other Wikipedia. So in the regional Wikimedians, and just and that's how the participants, and there are some good old people here, and also a bit of a tiny bit of a press release about this. So yeah, we did our small part in this.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, that's basically what we are doing now. So we are not thinking of the virus. We are trying to keep people busy in a way. We are trying not to brawl a lot about what is happening, and that's basically what I'm doing too. I'm doing, as always, biographies, and I did actually 2 biographies for people who were involved during World War One. One was an Italian soldier who actually became he emigrated to the U.S. Then in 1915 came back to Italy because he wanted to fight on behalf of Italy as a volunteer. But when he got there, he became a pacifist because he understood what war was about. And then later, when he came back to the US, he wrote down his biography autobiography in the 30s, which was quite successful. The fun fact is that we actually got to know him like a couple of years ago because the book was published in Italian like in 2019, and the name came out in 2018 because of a documentary made by in a co-production between Italy, France, Germany, and stuff. The very same documentary is also about this Cossack girl, this Russian girl. She was 14 at the time of the war, and she enrolled in the Russian Imperial Army, and she fought on the Russian front, on the several Russian fronts. And she also made some autobiographies once she emigrated to the U.S. So basically, I fell in love with those 2 people, and I said, why not write a Wikipedia article about them? Why not do something about this? And so just not thinking about the virus, thinking about other stories. They are World War One related. So, and we were like flooded with World War One stories in the last years because of the centenary. It was really, really felt here in Italy, and still, I mean, it's a good story to talk about and to discover new things. In a way, it locks with with the gender gap. We usually try to make gender gap initiatives more like telling stories about people who we don't know about, and trying to find out the biographies of people who are actually interesting, who lived an interesting life, and try to see just look, there are so many good people. There are like telling a good story, a heartwarming story, and now as much as we need it, and also trying to reconnect with our territory and our things. But I've talked too much, so yeah. If you have any comment on this or questions, or if you want to copy us, please do. I mean, it's a wiki, so just replicate our experiment and our experience.
Thanks, Luca.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting, and I think we could learn more about making those campaigns, because I don't think we have anything US based that's as coordinated as that. And if you're going to be stuck at home, write about your local park that we don't have an entry about yet in Wikipedia. Show off your local stuff, and there's also that effort of people posting pictures of empty streets, which you almost could never get in some of these places. But now it's like, oh, these streets are empty. It's the first time we can get pictures of no one in the streets during daytime, right?
Yeah,
Stay away from other people.
Yeah, yeah, but we can't, because we would be violating the curfew. So
yeah, in Italy, yeah.
So I mean, you could do it like last week, but now everyone is like now locked down, right? So
yeah,
it's brutal. So yeah, thanks so much for that. It's something that we are trying to figure out in all of our editions on how to better engage folks, because there's a huge opportunity here if we know how to activate them, right? We have lots of people with stuff to share, so hopefully we can get them there, right? So, that was a great roundup of a lot of different types of stories and a lot of different types of efforts. So just to remind folks that you can still engage with us even after the podcast by going to the Facebook group that we have, facebook.com/group/Wikipedia Weekly, or you can go to the Twitter account, Wikipedia Weekly there, or you can watch us on YouTube, which doesn't have a very pretty URL, but you can find it by looking for Wikipedia Weekly's playlist or channels on YouTube. And a reminder that any of you can respond in any of these channels, and we can bring up your comments on the screen so that we can talk about them. And thank you for the folks who did respond during this podcast. We had some great feedback. I don't know if we had the last one, which we didn't talk about, this one from Alicia. Wasn't it a thing on English Wikipedia where people were asked to rate or star articles a couple of years ago? Some sort of weirdish face. Yes, that's right. So Richard, you may remember this. What was that like, the rate an article function?
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was called, but it was kind of fun. And I think, we should experiment more with that. I mean, it wasn't necessarily, the greatest individual feature, but I think we should experiment more with things like that. And people have done that with different languages, different projects. And I think it's, especially if it was sort of introduced as one of these top-down things. Right. And I wish it was done in a little bit more of something you could play with, rather than here we are putting on, this is the social media, version we are putting on top. We're now professional social media experts, and you can use this. I wish it was a little bit more of a plaything, than this hyper slick thing on top. But I do think it's worth experimenting with that kind of stuff.
Right. I don't know if you remember, Luca, or this feature, but I think there's two interesting things. One, as Richard said, it was almost assume bad faith because it was from the foundation. So then you're automatic all right, I'm not sure about this. And then the other part was that I think people were very confused by the article rating, which is is it the quality of the article? Is it, what dimension are we measuring here? And I think they got a lot of non-useful feedback from people who just didn't like the topic, rather than getting specific feedback about the article's quality. And that's kind of what I remember as it being sub-satisfactory, and then it was just taken out at that point. But you're right. At least with something vague like thumbs up, thumbs down, what does that mean when you give a thumb up in Facebook? We can kind of leave it vague. But when you're asking for specific article feedback, I think it's tougher to figure out what to do with that. But that's a good question. I'm not sure it'll make a comeback in any way, but it is useful to keep thinking about how we can provide ways to signal back quality. But right now, I think more effort has been put into AI and to use machine learning to try to figure out, article quality that way. Yeah. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us. This is a kind of a spur of the moment, but I think this is a nice experiment where after our kind of weekly calls by different groups, the other day we had a podcast episode right after the Walrus call, which is the Wikimedians in local regions of the United States, or active in local regions. So are you sensing a trend here? We've got the Walrus call. We have the WREN call. We actually have a Crow group talking about conference remote options for Wikimedians. I'll let you do the math and figure out why we have crows, wrens, and walruses infecting the Wikimedia sphere. But thank you again for joining us. Again, go to Facebook, Twitter, or if you're on YouTube, subscribe, leave comments. We're trying to provide a global conversation for Wikimedians and even people new to the movement. We're having a lot more people staying at home, trying to enter Wikipedia, looking at the talk pages. Hopefully you'll find these useful. If so, let us know, and we're happy to think about different types of programming that fit that. In the next week or so, we're going to have specific interviews with Wikimedians working on photographing ancient mosques in Northern Africa, and another one about how to edit articles about women in red. So we plan to have those types of programming in the next week or so. So stay tuned. And thanks to Kelly, Luca, for joining this crazy experiment that Richard and I are having. But I think it's been pretty successful so far. And if it brings some type of companionship to all those Wikimedia folks out there, we've done our job, I think. So thanks again.
All right. Stay safe, everybody.
Stay home, stay safe.
Yes,
and stay at home.
And edit Wikipedia. And edit Wikipedia.
Don't be a hero. Stay at home.
See ya.
Bye.